Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are right now. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1 hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about. Tonight we'll be talking about the People Matter story. The People Matter story. That's interesting, yeah. So, and you are?
Luann Bursey.
Luann Bursey.
Development Director with Because People Matter here in Portland.
How are you feeling right now?
Good, yeah,
You're not
good.
nervous?
Oh, a little bit. So I have not done this before. So
I'm always very nervous.
a little nerves. Why not? Yeah. I guess when you do something long enough, though, you get used to
Do
it.
you know after about 2 or 3 minutes you'll forget the camera's on you and the time will fly by before you know it.
Good.
It's
That
going to
sounds
go
good.
very well, yeah.
Yeah. So just a conversation.
Yes, so as you know, the show goes in two major parts. The first part is the who are you part. That's what I call it. It's a bio. We talk to you about who you are and those kinds of things. And people have an idea where you're coming from when you're talking about the rest of what we'll be talking about tonight. And I'm nervous, as you can tell. I'm always nervous.
Aw.
All right. And again, if I ask you a question that you don't care to answer, you don't have to answer. So,
Okay.
but these are pretty well worked out before we get going here. And when and where were you born?
I was born in 1968 in February. I'm a leap year baby. Well, that's one interesting thing about me.
Yeah.
In Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, Californian. How long you been up here?
22 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah.
Why were you born?
Why was I born? Oh my goodness.
People always ask me the same question back again.
That's a big story. I don't know. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about my birth and all that. Goodness, I don't know. So I'm finding out every day why I'm here.
If I were to ask your best friend, who is Luann, what would your best friend say? Be your best friend. Luann is?
Well, I just did an exercise like this recently where I had to ask for 10 words from people that I know, people that I just met. And goodness, compassion, people come across with that word quite a bit, and integrity, and they would
Your
say...
best friend would say, Luann is compassionate, and what else is
creative. They'd probably say that I'm creative, and that I enjoy people, so I am relational. I tend to be a relational type person.
I can tell.
What else? I love nature. I love...
and your best friend knows that about you?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any significant features about your national or cultural heritage, or are you just plain old American white bread?
Well...
What kind of mixtures do you have in your background?
I am half Hispanic and half, I don't know, German. I say Germish. Half German, half Spanish.
I bet.
But no, my mother's family is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Martinez is the last name. And then my father's family is Welsh and English. So, yeah, kind of mixed. Yeah, nothing really too extraordinary. No, I've done some family research, and I have a 7th great grandfather who was a Minuteman. So he fought in the Revolutionary War, which I wish I would have known that when I was in school. I probably would have paid much closer attention, as it would have been a more personal story than just the rhetoric of history. So.
And do you have a religious preference? Some people say I don't care to answer that, and some people say they have one, they don't.
I'm Christian, so I follow Christ. I'm Catholic as well, so I've converted to Catholicism.
I was born Roman Catholic. I was an altar boy for years.
Were you?
And I'm recovering from it now. No.
So I didn't know where you were going serious on that or not.
I'm a humanist now, but I still have fond memories of those things in growing up and my Catholic upbringing, so I have some identification with you on that score.
I always appreciate thinking about the nature of our faith, people's faith, why we call on it, how we construct it, what things we buy into and what things we resist when it comes to religion and dogma. So I like thinking about those things a lot, but I've had a couple of moments in my life where I think God exists and yeah, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye.
Yes, a lot more. Christian, and do you practice Catholicism nowadays? Do you go to Mass on Sundays and all that stuff?
Yes, I'd say I don't go to Mass every Sunday. So, for instance, I think previous generations would feel either chastised or self-chastised if they didn't attend church every Sunday. I probably take a more liberal approach with myself in terms of the relationship I have with God and where and how that is fed. And so I don't need to be, in one place on Sunday to engage that part of my
Who is God?
Spirit. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a big question.
You betcha.
Yeah.
I'd ask you some questions you don't have answers now, and maybe it'll think in the future it'll provoke some thinking.
I think a lot about those things. I think it's a different answer for different people and different points in history. So
that's why I ask you.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, goodness, I would say that there is a lot going on for a lot of different people who are living and breathing right now, and that the aspect of the story that God weaves into our lives, the story of meaning and need for one another, and the creative story of what it means to be human. I think I don't know, I think about when my daughter was born and I was wanting to talk with her about the concept of who is God, and I would just say that, if I were to be honest, I think that, God may or may not look like you and I, or Dad, or somebody that I really can't say, but I can say that God exists, and there'll be times in your life where that.
Do you pray?
I do.
I remember my mother, I'm the baby of 12 children,
Wow. Where were you, in what order were you?
And I look this way because the red, white, and black heritage is all mixed up. And the end result is what I look like, and complexion like. Sort of thing. But Mama, I remember her as being very old when I was born. And she spent a lot of her time in the rocking chair because she had some difficulties at her age. And on one arm of the rocking chair was her prayer book, and the other was where her beads were. She prayed a lot, and she was a good Roman Catholic girl and a woman like that. So I have fond memories of Mama, and what a gentle soul she was. And she gave me my first lesson in philosophy and what's really important in life. And when I'd get into an argument with one of my brothers, and she'd say to us, okay, you boys, just be nice. And after all my education and stuff, my PhD and like that, I realized that's the most important thing. Be nice. It encompasses everything.
It opens you to the other in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So, your education. Say a few words about your education.
Well, I did not complete my degree. I kind of got busy working, and then had my daughter when I was 27, and didn't go back to work for quite a long time. Before I had her, I was working in IT, and so when it came time to look at going back to work, I felt kind of overwhelmed with new motherhood and all of the changes in the IT world during the time that I wasn't working. So I stayed at home, started volunteering.
What's the IT world?
Information technology.
I thought. I wanted to be sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I had recently learned about networking and computers, and in the insurance industry, and kind of found that I liked the order and the symmetry of all the systems and how they work together and how you can troubleshoot and find and solve problems quickly. That was always a great draw and make someone's day. And going back into that whole part of the world moves very quickly. Systems, upgrades, changes. So
And how do you keep up with it nowadays? It keeps changing.
Yeah, I don't. Goodness. Now with iPhones, forget it. I think, the technology, I don't try anymore. I can't
still
even
like
figure out the
Google
apps.
or Wikipedia.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to
I'm so
go
far
and
behind
ask
the times.
every question, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You can't stop Google. All right. And are you working now in your life?
I am. I work for Because People Matter. One of the things I learned in my volunteer years at my daughter's school here in Hillsborough was to work on auction work, ask businesses and ask people to contribute to helping a cause. In that case, it was education. And so, going back to work, I thought, I think I definitely don't want to help make a better widget somewhere. I'd like to help an organization with a cause that has impact. So I was volunteering at the time with BPM, Because People Matter. And there was a job opening available, and I just sought after filling that role.
And BPM
Is an acronym for Because People Matter.
What an idea.
Yeah.
And you've been with them for a while.
Oh, let's see. So 3 years now.
Mm-hmm. And I see the smile on your face when you describe what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about people.
A little tiring to talk to so many people who are in need or struggling with their lives.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was just talking about that today. I think, what do you call it?
Some kind of fatigue.
Yeah, it is. It is a fatigue. It's funny. I'm getting older now. I'm going to be 51, and my memory is just. But yes, there is that fatigue, and you have to constantly work to peel back the layers of why the work you do matters to you, so that you can engage it, with your whole self every day. So do I get tired of it? No, I think I get re-energized when I do have a chance to talk with and meet with, especially first-time volunteers who, for instance, come out to volunteer at Night Strike, and they're taking themselves from maybe their neighborhood in West Lynn and bringing themselves into the city and getting parking, and the city and the streets and everything going on there are very different than the suburbs.
So you meet once a week there?
Once a week, yeah.
Thursday evenings?
Thursday evenings,
Under the Burnside Bridge?
Under the Burnside, we have on average about 125 volunteers each week who will come out, many of them first-timers.
Really?
And I think it's good for people to get outside of their comfort zone.
Where do you get the money to provide the food and all that stuff that's needed? And how do you get that space reserved for you to do your thing? Night Strike does.
The funding comes from generous individual donors, corporate donors. We have large corporations and faith groups who will come forward and sponsor one entire night. So Night Strike costs about $800 to run each Thursday night, with food, with licenses from the city, equipment, and all of the things that we bring together for those few hours to
And it's
provide.
been going on for how many years? Night Strike, roughly?
Well, let's see, 2004, so going on its 14th year, 15th year. So.
And that's how you met Todd?
Yes, Todd is one of
Kaufman.
those individuals under the bridge that you can talk with for hours. He has so many stories. He's just an interesting man and such a compassionate man. He really is.
I was just thinking of the word compassionate, yeah. And when you talk to him, you know he's going to listen to what you're saying.
Yeah, it's true. He always does. He always has something that he's working on, though. Have you ever noticed that about him? He'll come in usually on a Thursday, and he always has this look about him, like He's just
always got something.
Yeah, he's got something. He's coming forward to tell you about something really interesting. You were a subject many times that he'd come in saying,
Really?
"Yes, I want you to meet this gentleman. He does this program, and it's very interesting. And I think you could share a lot about what we do."
Because
So,
I'm curious about people like you and people who care for human beings enough to put forth the efforts you're putting forth in connecting and listening to people and paying attention to them. And if I can show someone that I am interested in them and I really care, and not just saying that, but demonstrating it and looking you in the eye as you talk to me to let you know I'm paying attention to you, that is so stroking, so powerful.
Well, and it's one of the things that most people who live outdoors, live on the streets, don't have. They really, they don't have maybe the sister that they can call on the phone, or the brother, or the neighbor who they can have a quick face-to-face. And I always tell people, I think we are designed for that. We're designed for not just the words you hear somebody say. It's such a small portion of the processes that your brain takes in from communication, but just the tangible exchange of presence that we have as people. And I think when you don't have that for a long period of time, I think you forget. You kind of change a little bit your ability to interact, to even navigate. Conversation can be difficult for people who live outdoors, and so and who are disconnected from society in the many ways that the people we serve are disconnected. And so, when I love seeing those one-time volunteers who come out, and how they hear of our program, I don't always know, but I'm always very proud isn't the word, but I guess thankful that there are other people in the world who decide that I'm not going to watch a rerun of Friends tonight. I'm actually going to go and wash someone's feet who I don't know, who might not smell very good. There's a lot of things that would repel someone who is comfortable from getting out and serving.
You do that sometimes?
You can laugh. So I have not done the foot washing. I keep saying I need to, and there are people who sign up, and absolutely, if they can't do the foot washing, they'll reschedule because they want to do the foot washing. Oftentimes it's it's someone from a faith background who or maybe a time of year when there's supposedly, I think, a time of year during when Christ washed the apostles' feet, something like that. So that is always a very busy time.
I gotta get down there. Yeah.
But no, clothing was how I came through the org. Started the first time I ever volunteered, I volunteered in the clothing station. So one of the services that's offered through Night Strike is the ability to get one pair of socks, a pair of underwear, a shirt, a pair of shoes if we have your size, a pair of pants. So one complete change of clothing.
Sure.
So
there's so much you guys do, huh?
I think there's about 16 stations. So between the popcorn station and the food station, we have a meal for about $3.25 under the bridge, and then we take out about another 200 sandwiches and send groups of people off on different block patterns while we're under the bridge. There are people who are living outdoors who won't leave their doorway to come get a meal under the bridge, or to come get a haircut, or any of our services. Their spot where they're sleeping out of the rain maybe, or just because it's their norm, is more important than the service. So we'll actually send people out to bring coffee and sandwiches and socks to them. So there's the food. What else do we do? Hair cutting. We have I think 6 or 7 hair cutting chairs that we bring out from a trailer that we own. And
I gotta come out there.
Last week we had Paul Mitchell's school. They bring their students out once a month as a service opportunity, and it's a real win-win because people are getting wonderful haircuts from people who are well trained, and and we actually have 7 or 8 chairs going at any one time, so we can bring through, 30 or 40 people just getting a fresh update and able to feel good about themselves.
I've been listening to you, and I find I keep going back in my mind and thinking of that song any more since I've been hanging out with Todd. Almost anything reminds me of a song. Remember, People Who Need People?
Yes, I do.
Oh, the luckiest people in the world. Yeah. I like
Yeah.
it. But people don't. I wonder if years ago, if people were more attentive to each other than they are nowadays. And I wonder if it's related to the technology and paying attention to things and things on the internet and cell phones rather than looking each other in the eye.
I wonder that too. I do. I think,
How'd you learn to listen?
I think you have to be interested in, the outcome of whatever exchange is being had, right? So listening is an important feature of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's probably just the curiosity of people.
Could we be better as a culture, as a society in this country than we are now in those terms? By people connecting with people, it seems like there's something missing now.
Oh, I tell you, that's...
Let's don't talk about politics.
Yeah, it's difficult, right?
You talk about Trumpenstein if you want to, I don't care.
Yeah. I say trumpet. That's my new word. He's a Trump puppet. Yeah, I think that the issue of homelessness specifically, so the issue that the org that I engage with regularly works with, I think it's all connected to that aspect of listening, and I think it also has to do with what's mine and what I share, what I don't share. I think, I don't know, a lot of times I'll think, like I drive home into my neighborhood out there in Hillsborough and I see each of the houses I pass, and they represent an individual or a couple of individuals inside that house who own or have the means to, have that house. This whole construct of what's important in life, of getting the American dream, so to speak. And I think there's people who don't have, game pieces on that board. And I don't know that we stop in general as a society to value those people anymore. I think those people become expendable somehow.
What are we going to do about that? Have things turn around and go different? I think in previous administrations in our history, we've had different leaderships and different governments where people had more concern for individual citizens than they do nowadays. I think we're heading in the wrong direction now.
Well,
and I'm a left-wing liberal from way back.
What's interesting is that, I think about the concept of art mimicking life or life mimicking art. You've heard that before, right?
Yes.
So I think about the people who are in power right now. Any of those changes or those principles could be highlighted and followed tomorrow if they so chose, right? But don't we vote in who's there? So is the onus really on us to make sure we have
Be careful what you're saying. Don't
representation?
re-vote our government. Think about that. I'm not sure we do with the money and this power like that. And I love to talk about politics, but let's just move on because we're talking about human beings.
Well, we are, but yeah, you talk about it's systemic. There's some systemic issues there that are really complex. And so I always say to people, what I love about our program is that while we as a society take time to really deeply think about what we see going on and whether we want it to be that way, and if not, how do we change it? How can it be equitable? There's a program that happens every Thursday night where you can actually come down and be a citizen across from another citizen and draw near to the issue. Think about it, think about the fact that person sleeps, in the bushes over by the Max track and what that would be like.
So
what
was
would
it 2 or 3 hours each time, or how long do you spend doing what you do down there under the Burnside Bridge?
Yeah, it's about a little under 2 hours. So by the time we get started, all told, from the time a guest or a volunteer comes to orientation to learn about who we are and why we're going out under that bridge, to the time that they're released to go back to their car, it's about 2.5 hours, almost 3. But we get out under the bridge at 8 p.m., so we spend about an hour with orientation getting those volunteers prepared and ready to serve from a perspective of, dignity. And, let them know why we do it as an org and kind of enroll them into this idea that people matter, right? It's not so much about the pair of socks you'll probably hand out tonight, or if you're at the food station giving a bowl of soup, it's, the soup is important, but also the way you give the soup and the way you meet someone's eyes. And we try to say that we want to impart a sense that you're known with our guests, and the people we serve under the bridge that are living in shelters or living on the streets, we refer to them as guests. Like, we set up this environment and we're hosting them. It's in their space. It's under a bridge that's most oftentimes used as a place to sleep because it's out from the rain.
Todd Kaufman, what does Todd do on those Thursday nights? Do you ever keep an eye on him, what he's up to?
Well, yes, we do.
He does everything?
He actually, he hosts a veterans table, so
yes,
he wants to have a station set up where he can be present for individuals who are experiencing homelessness and whatever brought them to that state in life, to talk with them about what those what there is for them, what our country provides for them, what social services are there that they may not know, they may have forgotten. And he goes as far as, even setting up rides for people to the VA
He personifies
center.
Empathy and caring. Yeah.
Yes.
I can't say too much about him. He's absolutely unique in his ability to connect and listen. And I said to him, you should have been a shrink like I was, but then you're already a shrink. There's something about you. I don't know how you got it, but you got it, and you love it because you care about people.
Yeah,
and now and then we talk about caring
person.
too much, such that we get in the way of the person taking care of themselves. And I spend half my time talking about other stuff rather than my voice. But he keeps telling me I'm getting better and better, and I'm watching and listening. I like talking about Todd.
I can't wait to see you under the bridge, sitting there with him. I think
will.
it'll be a great. You'll see so much more that I can't even begin to explain to you about what happens under the bridge.
Let me ask you a few more questions before we go into the second half.
Okay.
You have a husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. I gotta cover all the bases. And children. How many children?
My husband Joe. We've been married for 27 years.
27 years.
I know.
That's forever.
Right? And we have a daughter, Julia, who is off studying at University of Washington, and she's don't know what she's going to do yet, but we lived overseas for a couple of years, and I think it gave her the sense of how broad the world is, and she thinks about things like policy and how countries work together, and so she's learning a lot, and we'll see where she goes. Yeah.
Is she going to be a people lover like Mom?
You know what? I think she is a people person. Yeah, she's definitely a connector, and she enjoying life with people. So.
How about your political persuasion? How would you characterize yourself? Left or right, or conservative, or liberal, or what? Your own term. Huh?
Yeah, you know what? I don't spend a great deal of time talking about, my own politic, just because it is such a hot button issue these days, even within families, and with the work that I do, sometimes I'm straddling the corporate world and the faith-based world in terms of donors and people who engage the organization. So I always try to stay as neutral as possible. But I would say that I lean towards people. I lean towards
people who need.
Yeah. Things. Who knows what's going to happen to this big blue orb that we're all spinning on right now?
Yeah.
But I think the things that we create, the systems that we create, need to serve people.
So let's continue on in a few minutes after we take a break. But first, I want to ask you about persons from the past or alive today that you admire or look up to? Like Jesus is probably one of your heroes, certainly one of mine. Any names come to mind, the people you admire that are alive today or from the past?
Wow, I just wasn't expecting these questions.
See,
Yeah,
that's
look
the idea.
Is it? So it's just fresh.
I enjoy it.
Oh, goodness. People that I admire. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that because I'm going to want to have it be something thoughtful that I touch into in terms of...
Nothing's coming to mind now, but I can tell because of how you are, by impression of you, is that you care and you are aware of those people that you, not even aware that you look up to and admire and like to emulate a little now and then. People who are particularly kind and loving.
Well, you certainly, hit it on the nose. I'd have to say I do tend to, just people who are alive today that I work with or that I see in society, people that are open-minded.
Give me a name.
Oh, my goodness.
No, you don't have to. No. See, I'm stimulating it and not provoking you.
No.
So let's take a break, and then we come back. We'll talk about the important ingredients of the People Matter story. You're talking about people matter, to live the philosophy that people matter, and you are in the middle of showing and living, walking the talk of validating people that they do matter.
That's correct.
Normal human being. Anyhow, looks like we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my guest here about who she is as a unique, one-of-a-kind individual, and she's shown that with what she said so far. And we'll be talking about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. We'll be talking about the People Matter story. We'll continue talking about that. And I have some specific questions that your boss, is your boss?
Is it my boss? Did she write these out?
Your boss these questions out, yeah.
Okay, yes.
And her name is?
Leslie Snyder.
Leslie Snyder, but she couldn't make it tonight because her husband was kind of under the weather, and she wanted to stay home and take care of him.
I know, so sweet. Poor
But-
guy.
Yeah, you know him?
I do.
Is he a nice guy too?
He is a good guy.
I'll
He's a very
betcha.
good guy.
And she's sure what she's involved with. Anyhow, so let's start off. We talked about because people matter and what that means. Will you say a few more words about that? Because, what do you mean people matter? What does that mean?
You know, well, if I were to just be, I don't know, the way I think of it is
That's what I
that,
want.
yeah, thinking about the whole, the reason why I think a lot of companies started changing the way that they characterize or their slogans on their companies to help the people that they want to draw in understand the core of what they do. And so a lot of companies did this, and you know, I think the because people matter branding of the company kind of explains it all. Why we do anything that we do, why any of our programs exist.
When did this focus start, pretty much? In the last 10, 20 years or something?
Well, the org started with, it was Marshall and Leslie. They at the time they lived, I think, out of the Portland area. They were coming into the Portland area, wanting to find a way to serve the city, and so they got a small group together and started cleaning up around the city a little bit, different areas around Old Town. And what they quickly realized was that was great and it was necessary, but it wasn't as meaningful. And so
Old Town Portland means an older area of Portland, which is probably more run down.
it is an older area of Portland. Yeah, I think many cities have these areas of town. They just kind of, they were
Neglected,
really interesting parts of town at one point in history, and then they get moved on and buildings become decrepit, and streets don't have commerce and a lot of people coming to them. So this, they kind of probably get ignored more so by the city than the financial districts and the
So you guys step
hoity-toity
in
areas.
and do what you can to make life a little more livable or reasonable.
And they found
for
that people, there was something Marshall felt that was calling him to actually serve people, not the streets of Portland, but the people of Portland. So he decided he was going to wash someone's feet. So he brought a chair and just sat it there with a bucket of water and said he'd wash the feet of the next person who came his way. And
Where was he doing this, on the street?
And no, it was Skidmore Fountain. So right there by, where the Max stop is now, the old fire
That's on the west
station.
side of the river.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the waterfront.
By, I think
Skidmore
it's
Fountain.
Ash
That's
Street, yeah.
Yeah, Ash Street.
Hmm. And he washed those feet. He had a conversation with the gentleman, and I think he was, because he was in that place of being open to wanting to figure out how to make an impact in the city, and he listened to the calling that it needs to be focused on a person. It needs to be more human and more meaningful. The story that that person in front of him that night told him impacted him greatly, and he told a few friends of his about it, and one friend said next time, I want to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and bring it with you next time you do this. And
This is how the organization started?
yes, just washing one person's feet, one person
And him
washing
and who
another's
else
feet.
was the starters of the organization?
His wife, Leslie.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. And so over the weeks and months, different friends and people, mostly in their faith group and their church and their neighborhood, brought things to share, sleeping bags. And one person wanted to bring clothes, and little by little, the weeks would go on and Thursday would happen. I think they actually started Friday nights initially. And they'd say, are you doing that thing under the bridge? I'll be there at that time, and I'm going to bring, some tennis shoes. We just brought a bunch of tennis shoes together for people. And
But people don't have to belong to a particular religion or faith to be a part of what's going on there?
No, it's more of a, human outreach. So
outreach, I like
then, yeah, there's no, ulterior motive for why we're there. There's no altar call, anything that happens. I think it's just about being compassionate to people. So, and yeah, I think, there's so many things I've learned through my time there with them. And that is, one of them is that, the experience of the person coming down under the bridge to serve, they're doing their philanthropic thing for the week, maybe coming down under the bridge. They come away realizing how much more impacted they were than they ever thought they were going to be by that few hours that night. And their experience is as much a part of the reason why we do what we do as serving the guests that we serve under the bridge, because the blanket we provide, the soup that night, the haircut or the foot wash doesn't take someone off the streets.
It makes their life a little more bearable, huh?
Yeah, hopefully there's an exchange in there that reaches them on a soul level, that they feel seen. Maybe they have a little bit more sense of their own sense of dignity or meaning, or that they matter somehow to the world, at least to one person. And and I think on a larger scale, when people draw near to a complex issue, it lets them have more than a secondhand, what do you call it when you'd have conversations at the office in the morning by the water cooler,
Yeah.
I heard on the news yesterday, blah, blah, blah. When you go and you draw close to an issue and you actually get involved, you realize the complexity that's there. And then you've enabled yourself to bring more of who you are and what you actually have to be a part of making something better, forward for that issue. So.
How have volunteers been affected by Because People Matter? I think you've indicated some of that there. The people who volunteer, something happens to them.
Yes, hopefully a little curtain is pulled back on their perceptions and on their prejudices, on their ability to actually easily just kind of keep this issue as some little thing the city needs to take care of with all the, garbage on the side of the freeways. Yes, there is garbage on the side of the freeways, but there's a much deeper issue at play there. And so, to be able to have a place, anytime you're able to go and volunteer anywhere, even other organizations that you draw near and can humanize the issue there that we're facing as a society, that's a good thing, so.
I think about the song Alfie. What's it all about, Alfie? That's my favorite song of all time.
Is it?
Is it just for the moment we live? What's it all about when you sort it out, Alfie?
Can I tell you something? This is kind of strange. So lately I've been feeling that that this issue is here. It needs to teach us something. We need to be learning something through the circumstance that there are some people that are not participating whatsoever in, what a lot of us actually have access to, which is a sense of security, a sense of knowing where our meals come from, just a sense of not being in a post-traumatic kind of state of mind, sleeping under a bridge somewhere.
We have an empathy deficiency disorder. The population, the empathy is gone. Compassion is missing anymore.
And there's this premise that I worked really hard to do this and they didn't, so why do I have to care about that? And
so, as we say, you're
walking
walking the talk. You're not just talking the talk. You're living it.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, we're all in this together. No one's getting out alive and in better condition than any of the rest of us, right? So, I mean.
Aren't you going to come back? Are you going to be reincarnated?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know.
If you were to come back, what would you come back as?
Well, logically, I would probably come back as like some moss or something on a redwood tree, because I think that's where I want my ashes scattered. So, in all likelihood, they might come back in some
I
kind
knew you
of
were a tree
bio-life.
hugger. You want to get to a tree. I know.
You're good.
What are your thoughts on homelessness in Portland? We've alluded to it somewhat. Do you have any more thoughts about homelessness in Portland? The extent of homelessness, or any other thoughts come to mind when you think about, and you're meeting more of homeless than ordinary citizens, and I feel guilty even like acknowledging that I've not been down there with what you guys are about. Because I was working from the other end as a psychologist, and I'm not talking about me anymore, I'm talking about you.
Yeah, people, complex, right? Brokenness. I was talking with someone today about that. I feel like many of the people that are there under the bridge that we see each week, that there's a level of something really deeply just broken inside. And I was telling this friend that, again, one of the dynamics I love, it's unscripted, is that you'll have someone come down out of a comfortable suburb to come under the bridge and realize, be face to face with somebody who has this level of brokenness, and it's undeniable. You feel it. You can. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe I have a more sensitive ability to, to see it or to be present to it. But I would say to someone, there's brokenness in those suburbs too, and people oftentimes run into walls in their life that are really hard to overcome or cope with. And those same problems happen to people who have no housing, have no shower, no bed to get decent 8-hour rest, to have a brain that's refreshed and ready to take on the challenge of the day. And so I think those moments that they come away with going, yeah, I mean, what makes me so special that I get to, have this lane and they're over there in that lane. And if there is some answer, it's got to spring somewhere from compassion and from us doing something together about it. And they don't need to just do something different. Nobody needs to be fixed, so to speak, there. I mean, all of us somewhat need fixed,
Do you have any memory of people that you've seen at Night Strike, and as time has gone by, you've seen them change, or their lot in life is now different as a result of people like you caring enough to show that you care?
There is a story. There's a person, his name is Jim, and I don't know his story in depth because I came to Because People Matter towards the last few months of Jim actually living on the streets. He was a veteran. He is a veteran, and he now has permanent housing, and we see him maybe once or twice a year. He comes under the bridge because he's working now, and he has found steps that he has made in his recovery from addiction that have been permanent for him. And so I think it's great that he does come back under the bridge. I know sometimes we see people who have gone through addiction and recovery, and being under the bridge is more of a trigger and an emotional, little bit of an emotional maybe undoing or sense of insecurity that they face. But
maybe it's a sense of a special breed of person there who, when they visit with them and talk with them, there's a unique connection that they long for. And usually people are too busy in everyday living to spend the time to just hang out with another fellow human.
Be present.
Be present,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that is true. So we last Thursday in our orientation, one of the few statements that we gave from the stage to our volunteers was, if you do nothing else tonight, just be present with one person. That's all. There's power. There's great power in that.
What are you most passionate about? You. What is it, Luann, that you feel more strongly about?
I would say that, in my perspective, the ability to just speed through life with going through from year to year, from the Easter cycle through the summer busyness and travel, and you've got, oh gosh, the fall coming and family, and just that whole cycle can just get going so quickly. And I think that it's healthy. I think it's healthy for a person to have a healthy family and community, but also to recognize fellow human beings that may not be a part of your neighborhood or even your community. And I think that doing that, volunteering in environments like wherever you volunteer, I mean, for me, I represent Because People Matter, so it's about people who are struggling in the margins, or if it's animals, wherever it is. I think our society and our world in general, it's we have a part to play in it, and so I like seeing that there are organizations like ours that encourage people to have a balanced perspective of having a life of meaning, and
A life of meaning.
Also engaging to reach out to others who are a part of the community but don't necessarily always receive that message, and to be someone who will give that message to others instead of just staying focused in one. I don't know if you've gone, like, I go and visit my family in LA. We'll go to like a beach town, and oh my goodness, the homes are huge, and it just becomes all about
conspicuous consumption.
Yeah.
So transformation trips, B-Town kids, inner city summer kids programs around the city, First Door, after school homework club, and Night Strike. We talked about Night Strike. Any stories about what we just mentioned, the transformation trips? What's that mean, transformation trips? Inner city learning environments for expanding compassion. That's a lot of words.
That is a lot of words. It's difficult to put into words what a transformation trip is. So if you've ever heard of an urban plunge. So this is something I had never experienced in my youth or until I worked with BPM, but apparently it's a term. So if a group comes in from out of town, or even if you go traveling somewhere and you decide you're going to have a volunteer type vacation instead of laying on a resort property for the entire time, you go and you get into the community and you make an effort to actually understand a little bit of the DNA of the place that you're visiting. So it's built on that kind of concept that for instance, for us, so transformation trips, we bring in groups from all over the region, as far away as Missouri and even further, different parts. They're
And from
youth
other parts
groups.
of the country.
Mm-hmm. They travel in. Usually they'll be on a multi-day experience. They might be volunteering with another organization for one day on a Tuesday, and then they'll come to us on a Wednesday. We actually have a location where we call the bunkhouse, where people can stay. We can sleep 30 to 40 people. And we start off that transformation trip by just talking to them about the issues in the city, the issues having to do with homelessness and gentrification and segregation, and try to expand their margins for recognizing what life looks like for different people in different parts of a city or different parts of our country even. So
it's an educational process for those visiting from other areas, and it's hard to see whether or not a person is really transformed because you've got to see them more than once. They have some sort of measure. How
it's an exposure for sure. It's not a, I mean, transformation is definitely possible, and we do see it. I mean, sometimes depending on the person and their makeup, they will tend to be more just emotionally on the surface, so you'll get to see kind of what they're going through in terms of sometimes being a little bit shocked or sad about the things that they see. And during that process, we just look to show them, to say to them that, a part of being the change for your city is doing, this set of things, whether it's removing graffiti in some areas, or going to a program on a Saturday and playing with kids at a local neighborhood park, just having fun. For one thing that we'll do on a Thursday, or actually on a Wednesday of the transformation trip, we will, I don't know what they call it, 'cause another person in our organization runs this, but we basically kick them out of our bunkhouse with this premise that we've just been evicted and we need to leave in 15 minutes and we can only take 2 things. And so the team, if it's 30 people, they get that 5 minutes to grab their 2 things, and then we're going to head downtown because there's probably something to eat down there. So the day before, we've talked with them about all the places that you can get a free meal, places that you can go for shelter, for medical needs or other issues that will come up. And they spend all day that day out in Portland, getting a meal somewhere, talking with people, sitting around on a corner. I mean, I've heard many a story from transformation trips of people meeting people that we know as regular people that we see under the bridge on Thursday nights, and having great conversations with them. And the end of that evening, we'll say, oh, you know what, we've actually been very fortunate. We found a place where we can stay for the night. And it happens to be the space that we rent to run Night Strike. It's called Liberation Street Church. It's on the corner of 2nd and Burnside, so right down there in the district of the people that we serve. And they'll sleep on the floor that night in that church. So we don't tell them that, of course, until the very last moment. And then the next day is all about, again, finding meals and I think in one point, we'll actually start making sandwiches and taking them out to people. So it's given them time for their perspective to shift to actually be in the shoes of the people that we serve.
How can we tell our viewers how they can become involved and assist and help with the kinds of work that you guys are doing?
Well,
you can talk to that camera and talk to the viewers, and your last comments right now about anything at all, what we talked about or anything else for that matter.
So Because People Matter is an organization that runs several environments, several programs, outreach programs throughout the year. Night Strike is 48 weeks of the year. Every Thursday night from about 6:50 p.m. We ask people to show up 10 minutes early until about 9:45. And you can sign up by going to our website, which I believe will be up online. It's www.bpmpdx.org. And you'll see links there for our different programs, transformation trips, B-Town Kids, which is a program we run during the summer, kind of like Night Strike, but the guests that we serve are really children and families in some of the tougher neighborhoods in town where parks just sit there empty throughout the day because it's not seen as a safe place to play. So we run that program as well. And First Door is an after-school program that happens year-round, weekdays from 2:30 to 4:30. And that's where we're in an apartment complex in the community building for the complex there, and we meet kids after school where the bus is and bring them in to give them homework help and kind of bridge the gaps that they may have at home with getting.
And the clock has caught up with us, and we're going to have to stop. So you're a wonderful guest.
Oh,
I'm glad you came aboard.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and you're a good guest.
Oh, thank you.
And when this is all done and ready for broadcast, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And so that you can see yourself on YouTube. And,
oh, Lord.
and you'll be fine, I say. So,
you think you got enough?
A couple public service announcements before we stop. And thanks for watching. Remember KFC, and not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And you too.
Thank you.
And you too. Yeah.